Well, this morning we have the first really substantial tropical cyclone of the season out in the western Pacific Ocean. This is the far east coast of the Philippine archipelago. This is Palau and a couple of other the smaller islands in the central Pacific. Watch this. This is the animation of tropical cyclone Surigai, Typhoon Surigai. And it's right now a fairly weak storm, but it is going to become a monster cyclone just off the coast of the Philippines over the weekend. It'll be a Category 4, maybe even a Category 5 hurricane. And this is such an extreme close-up and it's not yet got its fully formed eye wall, as we were talking about in class the other day, but this is a warm core cyclone, and you can see the intense thunderstorm activity around its center and the clear counterclockwise rotation of the clouds associated with the storm. When we get early next week, hopefully there'll be a nice collection of animations of this typhoon as it moves closer to the Philippines, and we'll be able to see some other characteristics of it. But it's a real treat for us to see one of these things live at the time of year that it is. You usually have to wait till about June, July, or August to start seeing these things in the Pacific, although they're not unprecedented in April. The strong ones are relatively rare there, so we've got a really beautiful one. And it looks as though it will not hit land in its course, and so that's also a blessing because these things can do great damage to places like the Philippines, which get visited by more hurricanes than any other place on Earth every year. So this is Typhoon Surigai that is churning away in the western Pacific Ocean very early in the season, and it's about to blossom into a monster storm. I want to show you the forecasted path that it's likely to take, and this is from the SSCC, the Space Science and Engineering Center, has in our building has a group called the Center for Meteorological Satellite Studies, and they're one of the foremost hurricane prediction locations on Earth. And here is where Surigai is right now at about midnight last night, and it's going to chug along east of the Philippines. And in this particular region, this will be during the day on Sunday, early Sunday morning and into the day Sunday. It'll be a Category 4 hurricane, extraordinarily intense, almost as strong as they get. Just to the east of the Philippines. So we'll see some better satellite pictures of this in the early lectures next week. So pretty explosive event that's going on there. And I must say, it was well predicted. Last Friday at our weekly weather discussion, we were talking about the possibility that this major typhoon would develop in exactly this location. And that was from forecast models. And boy, they were right on target. So this thing's really turning into a major event. Okay, let's take a look at our surface map. Over the continental U.S. this morning at 8 o'clock. We've got snows, widespread snows, relatively light ones, over the high terrain in western Nebraska, western Kansas, and the plains of Colorado. This is all flow that's going up the slope, because here's a region of anticyclone, region of high pressure. So the flow around this thing is clockwise, and so this weak flow is going to the west across Nebraska, across Kansas, across Colorado, and that is, the topography is sloping upwards. So this is called upslope snow that's formed here. It's not very heavy today, as it turns out, but it's widespread. And then there's a region of convective rain across parts of southern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, and into northeastern Texas. So we'll see that on the radar in a minute. And then snows across much of New England associated with this cyclone that's just off the coast, over the Cape Cod and the islands, actually. And so it's snowing in a lot of places in the metro Boston area, but in the city itself, it's raining this morning. And so you might think this is rather late in the year for snow. It is, but it's not unprecedented. And so here's a fairly weak cyclone that's spawning all of that activity. We've got a beautiful day over us. Finally, a little bit of an increase in the temperatures in the offing today, but you'll see in the long-term forecast, we stay chilly, I think, almost through the rest of the term as far as we can go. And you'll see that as we move forward. So here are the temperatures from this morning. 38 in Madison, 34 in Green Bay, so still pretty chilly, as I say. 37 in Boston and Portland, Maine, 38 in Burlington, 33 in Albany. If it's snowing hot enough, you can have sublimational cooling in the column, and the wet bulb or ice bulb temperature will stay at or below freezing, and you get some heavy wet snowflakes, and I think that's what's occurring in the metro area today in Boston. Warm down over the peninsula, warm over the southern part of Texas along the Gulf Coast, and pretty nice over much of the southern states this morning. But broadly speaking, this is a chilly day across the continental United States for the middle of April, and that's not surprising. We've seen that all week. What also won't be surprising is that with the chilly temperatures, there are relatively low dew points. And so we had a 37 or 38 temperature, 34 dew point. It's even drier to the north, relatively speaking, where the dew point depressions get on the order of 10 degrees. But the only place where there's really a lot of water vapor in the air is down over the coast of Texas and the southern states. 68 at Miami, 73 at Corpus Christi for the dew point. And then we've got a few 60s and mostly 50s around the southern states. And then drier everywhere else, as you can see. Our satellite movie across the continental 48 and adjacent waters indicates two disturbances, and one of them we've already seen is the one that's associated with the clouds and precipitation over southern New England. There's one to the east which didn't quite show up on our satellite map, and there it is, southeast of the Maritime provinces. I think on Wednesday I mentioned this one might remain relatively stationary, and it appears to have done so. And then here's another disturbance that's now over the eastern part of Colorado and western Nebraska, western Kansas, and we saw some of the effects of that with the line of heavy convection across eastern Oklahoma blowing up right there, and then some snows in the upslope flow in the increasingly higher terrain to the west. So a fairly nice day across the country, a couple of places where that's not quite true. Here's the radar that goes along with it. A couple of the images at the beginning are cut off, unfortunately, but you can see the heavy convective line across eastern Kansas, Oklahoma, and into northeastern Texas. Some places here getting probably pretty heavy rain showers, maybe even some hail. And then the rest of the circulation associated with that storm that you could kind of see counterclockwise rotating in the satellite there over eastern Colorado is obvious across Nebraska, Kansas, and the eastern part of the state of Colorado. Little bit of rain extends into the southern parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and the far western panhandle of Florida. And here's the western edge of the precipitation shield associated with that cyclone that's off the coast of New England. And so some of this, probably not where it's yellow, but some of this further in the interior is snow. Some of it is mixed snow and rain. And but a pretty nasty day in southern New England, for sure, compared to many other places across the country. And then the West Coast satellite image depicts a fairly inactive eastern Pacific. Beautiful weather continues across the Pacific Northwest, extending all the way down the coast of California. I had a teleconference with a colleague in Portland yesterday, and it was, I think she told me it was about the 10th or 11th straight day without precipitation in Portland. They've had an extremely dry April. They actually have fire danger up there as a consequence, and it was sunny and beautiful there, which eventually happens for many weeks in a row in the summertime, but it's uncommon this early in the spring to have this kind of weather in the Pacific Northwest, but it's just been gorgeous the last few days. And there isn't too much weather to the west of them. You can see nothing really well organized in terms of cyclones, which I think now, by this point in the term, you can probably identify by eye in terms of their circulation and the cloud distribution and so on. So pretty inactive eastern Pacific Ocean over the last several days, and certainly so this morning. And then finally, since it's Friday, let's take a look at our forecast for the coming week and maybe a day or two past that week. So this is from a forecast made last night at midnight, and it's valid this morning at 7 a.m. The colored chart indicates temperatures at about a mile above sea level, the 850 millimile level. The white lines are the equivalent of isobars at that height. And so the winds, as you can see, if you can see those little arrows, are pretty much parallel to the isobars with low pressure to their left everywhere in conforming with the geostrophic wind relationship. And so it's pretty chilly to begin the day here in Madison. We're about -2 to -4 at 850 millibars. And so what we often do is, of course, just see how that changes as we move forward through the week. So we'll go ahead at 12-hour intervals. This is now tonight at 6 p.m. Temperature doesn't change very much. Notice this cutoff disturbance off the New England coast with cold temperatures underneath and an immovable cyclone. So it's whatever it's doing there, raining or snowing, it's going to do all day long. And it keeps on going. This is 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, Saturday. Storm is in the Gulf of Maine, hasn't moved very far. It's even colder in southern New England than it was, so probably more chance of snow. And then it finally starts to move off during the day Saturday. What I'm keeping my eye on is this building cold air mass over northern Canada in the purples. That's like -12-ish, -14 degree air. Remember, we're starting at about -4. Let's see what happens to that as we move forward. This is Sunday morning. This is Sunday afternoon. A cyclone develops over the Arrowhead of Minnesota, and it's going to drag some of that cold air down behind it. There's a really nice cold front developing right there through South Dakota and then along the almost along the border between Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. So pretty nice. And we're going to keep on seeing what happens to that. So this goes ahead to Monday morning. By Monday morning, we're going to see a substantial change in our weather. We're going to have this cold air advection coming in during the morning on Monday. And so it's going to go from not really that warm over the weekend to considerably colder on Monday. And I'm sorry to tell you. And then it comes racing through during the day Monday. We're substantially colder. The temperatures now are on the order of -10, -12 instead of the -4 we have today. So that's going to be more clouds in the sky. Colder surface temperatures will certainly be the case by Tuesday morning. And notice how sharp that front is. That temperature contrast region is really sharp across the eastern United States and eastern Canada in association with this passage. We're well into the cold air back here in Madison. And we're going to keep on going to Wednesday night. A little bit of a reprieve. The temperature increases a bit, but I'm watching now this cold pool up in western Canada. And let's see what happens with that one. Here it comes. I'm following a similar path. This is now Thursday night. It gets warm during the day Thursday, relatively speaking. Maybe the warmest day of the last several. But that does not last. This is Friday morning of next week. This is Friday afternoon, evening. And we're going to be back into the cold air. So the transition that we experienced during the day Monday will be done again a little bit later in the day on Friday, according to this forecast. And it will bring us a pretty chilly early part of next weekend. So we're getting all the way to the 24th of April without anything like spring weather after that first beautiful week we had in this month. It's been chilly ever since. It looks like it will remain that way for the next several days, with a sequence of pretty nasty cold frontal passages making their way through Monday and then again on Friday.